Hi students. So today we're going to talk about the past continuous tense. This is also called the past progressive tense. They mean the same thing, so you can call them either one, past continuous or past progressive. So we use this when we have actions or events that happened in the past, but they continued for a short amount of time. So this event is now over. However, if it is still happening, you use the present continuous. So you know that it's the past continuous because it's over at this point. But remember, this is something that continued for a short amount of time. So let's look at it on a timeline. So if we say this, and that way would be the future. Right here, we can say that's the present. That's happening right now. Let's say back here, we can call this the simple past. And we talked about that last week. So then we've got past continuous. What could that mean? So past continuous is, like I said, an action or event that started in the past, right? All of this, it's the past because the future and the present are way up here. So this is something that would happen on this timeline, and then it would continue for a short amount of time, but it still ends in the past. Okay, so it's something that began in the past and ended already. So past continuous or progressive. Let's do some example sentences. I think that will help you understand what this means. So our first example, Liverpool was losing the game until halftime. So the game is already over, but until halftime, they were losing the game. Liverpool was losing the game until halftime. Another example, I was reading when my mom called. So this is an interesting sentence because I use past continuous and the simple past. So my mom called, that is one specific event. It happened at a certain time and then it was over. I use past continuous to describe what I was doing until my mom called. So maybe I was reading for like 3 hours and then my mom called, and that is what ended the reading time I had. So if you'll notice, to form the past continuous or past progressive, I have to have two different things. So if you look at our example sentences again, we have was losing. Our main verb is losing, and we added the ing, but I also have the word was. That's one of the keys to past continuous. Was reading. And then you'll see the difference between past continuous and simple past. When you have simple past, you do not need anything but that main verb, and you add ed. So you use was or were before the main verb, just like we saw in those examples. Then you add ing to the main verb. So here's our formula. We have our subject, then we have was or were. That depends on subject-verb agreement, which I'll talk to you about in a second. So we have the subject plus was or were plus the ing form of the verb. Let's look at that with an example. The class, that's our subject, was, because it's one class, the class was talking. The infinitive form would be talk, and then we added ing to that main verb. The main verb is talk, we add ing, and we use was. So there are two components that you need to remember for the past continuous. For subject-verb agreement, you need to use was for singular subjects and use were for plural subjects. So on this one, I is a singular subject, just me, one person. I was reading. So again, we can see that we have was and we added ing to our main verb. Use were for plural subjects. We, that is many of us, so two or more people. We were studying. So there's our were, and we added the ing one more time. Study is our main verb, we added ing. All right, let's do some practice sentences. I think this one is a little bit easier to understand than the simple past. There's not quite as many rules to forming it, but let's do some practice sentences. So, number one, I blank blank. The word is study, and we need to put it in the past continuous. So, I showed you an example there that might help you, but think about, is this one person or several? Is it a singular verb, or I'm sorry, is it a singular subject or a plural subject? That will help you figure out what should go in that blank. And then we have our main verb. So take a second and I'll have you fill that in for yourself. And then I'll start catching up. Here we go. I was studying. Our subject is singular, therefore we use was. Study is the main verb, we add ing. So here's our main verb for our next sentence. Look at our subject, ask yourself, is that one person or several? Is that a singular or plural subject? Then you need to decide what goes in this blank. I gave you the main verb, so what do you add to make this past continuous? I'll give you a second. Here we go. We were reading. Were, because we need to have our subject and our verb agree. This subject is plural. It's more than one person. And so we use the plural verb were. Okay, this one is a little more complicated. Look at our subject, ask yourself singular or plural, and here's our main verb. I'll give you a second to fill that in. Here we go. I was listening to music last night at 7 o'clock p.m. So that probably started before 7 o'clock and it continued past 7 o'clock, but I'm not still listening to music now. So it has since ended. That is something that continued for a little while in the past, but again, it's over at this point. I'm not listening to music right now. I would use a different tense if I was. Number 4, 2 more. The student blank blank to school when she heard it was a snow day. Here's our main verb, and there's our subject. So think singular or plural subject, and how do we make the main verb go into past continuous? Was going. The past continuous is nice because the rules are very constant. You don't have to think of many irregular verbs like we had to learn in the simple past. In this one, you just add ing and you will always choose between was and were based on if you have a singular or plural subject. One more, and I won't give you any hints for this one. My parents blank blank TV when I called them. There's our main verb. Go ahead and figure out, how do we put this in past continuous tense? So to figure out if I should use the singular or plural version of this verb, I had to recognize if parents was singular or plural. And I know that if it has an S, then it's more than one parent, right? Both of my parents were watching TV when I called them. So I don't say specifically when I called them, but again, this is an example that also has the simple past. So a lot of the time, like in example number 4 as well, a lot of the time we will use both to describe what we were doing when something happened, right? The student was going to school when she heard it was a snow day. My parents were watching TV when I called them. We use simple past for the action that took place at a specific time. It shows very precise details. That's simple past. If we're describing something that started and continued for a short amount of time to describe what we were doing, then that's when we would use the past continuous. So watch this video a couple more times if you want some more practice or if you want to go over the rules again, and I will see you for our next grammar tip.